Hello, Humane marketers. Sarah Znekrocha here. Welcome to another episode of the Humane Marketing Podcast, a place to be for the generation of marketers who cares. This is the show where we talk about marketing your business in a way that feels good to you, is aligned with your values, and also resonates more with your conscious customers because it's not pushy, ethical, and also beautiful. So if you're a regular here, you know that I'm organizing the conversations around the 7 Ps of humane marketing. And if you're new here and this is your first time, welcome. I'm so excited you're here. You may want to download your one-page marketing plan with the 7 Ps of humane marketing in the form of a mandala at humane.marketing/one page, the number one and page. So again, humane.marketing/one page. And with that, with no further ado, let's dive into today's conversation. Myriam, it's good to have you back. Welcome to the Humane Marketing Podcast.
Sarah, I'm so happy to be back on your podcast.
Back in my house, right? We just said
Yes,
it's just like having a conversation in my house. Yes.
yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you've been on the show before, but this time we decided to talk about neurodivergent marketing, which is something that I'm super excited about, and especially to talk about it with you, because you went through this own little transformation and awakening, or how would you call it?
Yeah,
This.
I mean, it's an awakening, a rediscovery, in a way of
Mm,
who I am, who I really am at my core, and how that
mhm.
impacts everything that I do.
Yeah. Yeah, because we worked together a few years back, and back then it was very much focused on women and well-being, the work that
hmm
you were doing. And so
hmm
tell us a little bit how that has changed over the most recent months, year.
Yeah. So, like most adults, it started with my kids' diagnoses of ADHD. And becoming more curious about it. I'm a therapist, so I always understood the diagnoses. I understood it in that way, maybe like in a more removed way. But once it was in my home, and I was really living with it, I obviously became much more curious about it. And then it turns out that, my husband is ADHD, and it's like, oh, look at them. They're like two peas in a pod. And so I started doing more training around this because I wanted to be more supportive for people around this. And quickly I started to see some traits, show up for me. And for me, it's a really interesting cross between autism and ADHD, which there's a term that's floating around out there called ADHD, and that's not a diagnosis, right? But it just reflects that there's this cross between these two worlds sometimes. And, we're learning all the time about neurodivergence, you know, and how it
Yeah.
shows up, and it's so different for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing your story. And it kind of went very similarly for me. Like for the longest
hmm
time, we, didn't know what my son was experiencing. And I first thought, well, introvert, like back in the days, we just talked about introverts, extroverts.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this term HSP came up, and I discovered, oh, I'm a highly sensitive person. And so I
hmm
thought, oh, that's probably what he is as well. And then, as we kept discovering more, and thank God we have so much information out there now and YouTube
Absolutely.
videos and all of that. It's so helpful. I don't know. Well, I guess that's a big reason why back in the days it wasn't discovered, right? I'm pretty sure my dad is autistic, but how would he have known if
That's right.
if there wasn't that much content out there and
hmm
diagnosis and so yeah, learning it about my son that he's on the spectrum, and then pretty sure my husband is too, and so just yeah, finding out more and more, and then working with clients who have ADHD or are HSPs, neurodivergency, and so I think I couldn't think of a better person than you to have this conversation around marketing because that's really what we worked on together as well.
Right.
And like, just I remember your expression of frustration around this thing that we call marketing and how it just like your brain was like going against it and you're like, no,
In all the ways, yeah, I could
yeah,
not process it.
yeah, exactly. So if we if you maybe think back to that time, but then also just to generalize, what do you think, like, why is marketing the old way of marketing, right? Why is that so counterintuitive for people on the neurodivergent spectrum? Why
Mhm.
do they react like you did, whereas, like, I just don't get it. Why would we do this like that?
Right, right. No, exactly. It's multi-layered, right? Because when we're talking about neurodivergence, we're talking about a variety of different disorders and diagnoses, right? So that could include autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyscalculia, which is, having a hard time with numbers or number concepts, dyspraxia, which is having a lot of uncoordination in your body, right? Tourette's. I mean, there's such a list that falls under neurodivergence. So when we talk about these generals, I want to make sure that I put that disclaimer out there that it's not necessarily applicable to everybody under that
Mhm.
umbrella, but that in general, really what it comes down to is sensory overload.
Mm.
Like it's just too much, it's too, and then pace. It's too fast. It's too
Mhm.
fast moving. We can't process. I mean, which is how I started this conversation, right? I was like, I can't process this. It was too much. It was too much, you know? And what's hard when you are experiencing neurodivergence, but you don't know that that's what's happening, is that you're comparing yourself to the neurotypical world, which is looking at you like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
I don't understand what your problem is.
Mhm.
Right. And so I really struggled with my self-esteem around my business for myself. Like, can I even do this? Because I can't do these things. I'm having a hard time. And then you have people telling you it's a mindset issue,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, I literally can't understand this concept. Right.
Yeah.
So much of it is that sensory piece, like I said, and just it's too fast and short deadlines and pressure and it's just not something that works with the neurodivergent nervous system. We're much more sensitive than that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and what I experience also from, what I hear back from clients is this authenticity piece. So
Hmm.
as we know, there's a lot of masking that needs to happen for, or not needs to, but is happening for neurodivergent people in order to fit in, right?
It's
Quote
part of
unquote.
survival.
And yeah, exactly. And so it almost seems like, well, they have to wear this mask all the time to survive, to fit in. And so they are kind of like revolting against having to wear this mask as well in the marketing field and in the business
Yeah.
field. It's just like so exhausting
Yeah.
to do that.
It's so exhausting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do think that it's 10 times more exhausting when you don't know what's going on. So a lot of the work that I do with adults, right, is help them see that they are probably under this umbrella, right? And we start looking at some of their behaviors, right, and their patterns, and then quickly together we can identify, oh yeah, it looks like maybe you're ADHD, or it looks like maybe you fall under autism, or whatever it is, or maybe there's more than one thing going on, ADHD with dyslexia, right? Dyscalculia is something that's relatively new in terms of a term that's used out there, right? And for me personally, I mean, I think I might have cried when I heard that term. It was like, oh, right. So it's not that I'm dumb. It's not that I'm not a quote unquote math person. Like My brain literally has a hard time processing numbers and number concepts, just like a dyslexic can't see letters in the right form. It's the same.
Yeah. And here we are, in marketing, keep telling people to not the numbers so much, but the content I'm thinking of, like keep creating all this content. Well, if you have dyslexia, well, writing and reading is definitely not part of the things that you enjoy doing. And
Right.
so again, if you compare yourself to the neurotypical people, you start to think, well, what's wrong with me? How come I can't do this?
That's right. And
I'm
then
not
that
good
really
enough and all of that.
interferes, right? You can see
Yeah.
how then that really starts to interfere. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And for me in marketing, there's always a lot of talk about budget.
Yeah.
And just the word sends my nervous system into a state, and if you start talking to me about budgets or asking me or start throwing any kind of numbers at me in any way, my brain will just completely shut down.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It just won't let it in, and you'll probably see a really blank look come across my face.
Yeah, budgets or even like conversion rates, right? How does
Oh,
that make
yeah.
you feel?
So scary.
Yeah.
So scary.
Yeah, it's all these metrics, like
Right.
the linear
Hmm.
and kind of like
Yeah, that's really, really
very
hard for
masculine
somebody.
way
Hmm.
of doing marketing was all based on numbers and conversions and
Right.
yeah, ROI is another one of those terms you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, I totally
And if
hear.
I hadn't discovered this, I might have given up. I might have just said, I guess this isn't for me.
Yeah,
Or I guess I can't do it or I'm not good at it.
yeah.
Right.
So so let's turn it around then. Like,
Yes.
what kind of, strengths do neurodivergent people have and can bring to this idea of business building and marketing and connecting and communicating, really, because that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, no, I love this part. This part gets me really excited, But I think that, again, a little mini disclaimer is that sometimes the strengths are like they're double-edged swords. Sometimes they also create stress. So, for example, one thing that neurodivergence bring is a lot of um, focus on detail,
Yeah.
right? And pattern recognition
Hmm.
and being able to take that information and then create a concept, you know? And that's amazing. That's an amazing skill, when it's applied well. And then we might focus too much on a detail, right? Or go
Yeah,
down a
it then
rabbit
leads
hole.
to procrastination as well because it needs
Hmm.
to be perfect into every detail. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanna separate those two things because perfectionism is more under the category of anxiety.
Hmm.
Right. And so when we're dealing with neurodivergence, we are also experiencing things like anxiety. So it becomes much more challenging, right, when we're dealing with these multiple layers at the same time. But I do think that if we can keep looking at what the strengths are in this, like really deep focus, right, directness and honesty. We don't really like small talk or anything that's not deep, essentially, right? And we have a hard time not being honest.
Yeah.
It really becomes a moral dilemma. And so those are things that I think are really beautiful about people under the neurodivergent umbrella, right? There's also the creativity
Hmm.
and out of the box thinking.
Yeah, very much so.
Hmm.
And I think that's what you really played into it, right? It's like because you have that creative part of yourself and you figured out how do I bring that to my marketing. I remember back in the days when you used to follow these kind of templates of creating Canva visuals, and
Yeah.
it just all looks the same, let's be honest, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you started to bring in your art and, more of your pictures, and you could tell, wow, she's really having fun with this. And that's the creative side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So
much
for
so.
me, I have to change some of the terms,
Yeah.
right? And it kind of maybe speaks to like how we market to neurodivergent folk, because if you use the word conversion rate, then my heart rate goes up and I'm going to have a shutdown,
Yeah.
right? But if you say how many people, right, or this many people clicked on your site and then this is what happened after that, then I got it. I can totally follow that pattern,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
So it's again, sometimes the wording, sometimes too much of a relationship to mathematical concepts or overwhelm, overload, right? That kind of a thing.
Basically, concepts that society accepted as being marketing concepts and ideas,
Hmm.
and that you are like, who said that was a concept? Like, explain it to me what that means in like full sentences.
Yeah, which is
And
very
then,
much a lot in the autism range.
yeah,
It's like we really want to know the detail. How did we get there? I really want to understand the process,
right.
right? And then I can really integrate the information.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah. What I notice myself doing a lot on the blog is taking some of these old paradigm terms from
Mm.
marketing, like lead magnet, right? Most people have heard of lead magnets, but what does that even mean? Like, it's such a weird kind of term where we're sucking people in with a magnet. And so turning that into signposts where
Hmm.
we are guiding people to make a buying decision, for example, or to come into our world. But I
Exactly.
find that I need to use the old word and then juxtaposition it to the new word so that I can
Hmm.
help make that journey over the bridge, like to help people understand, yeah, this is maybe what you've heard, but it doesn't feel good. And so here's an alternative. Here's
That's
a
right.
different word for it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I hear from you that that's helpful, right? Like coming up with new language around marketing that
One
then
hundred
calms
percent.
our nervous system as well.
That's right. And so much of the self-care is like being able to notice that something does create agitation for you, right? And rather than question it or put yourself down for it, it's like, okay, it's just that my nervous system it's not liking this for some reason. Let's see what I can do about that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Hmm. Like, what other things that you have experienced in business, like let's think about sales, for example,
Hmm.
uh, where you feel like there's been a certain norm, again, these norms, right? That neurodivergent people are like, I don't get these norms. Like, but there are some kind of norms, like let's take a sales call that feels very scripted, where you are on the call and you can like what my son always says, he's like, it feels like we're in a simulation. Not necessarily the
Yes.
sales call, but I'm sure he would say that if the person just kind of goes blah, blah, blah through the sales script and you're like, is he even talking to me? Like, is this for real? Like, yeah, do
Right.
you have any other kind of business concept things that you feel like, yeah, that's just not for neurodivergent people?
Oh yeah. I mean, let's start with the scarcity countdowns,
Yeah, yeah,
right? What my
yeah.
body does with that is it shuts down.
Creates so much anxiety, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And for some people, it will work, so to speak, quote unquote. It will create such stress in someone that they'll buy the coaching package or, whatever it is, but that's kind of icky, right? And it's the opposite of humane marketing.
Yeah.
So that those kinds of things, are not for the neurodivergent. I don't think they're for anybody, but that's my personal opinion, you know.
Yeah. My opinion too.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
Right?
Another example that comes to mind, I don't know if that is still happening out there, but back in the days, they would have these webinars, huge webinars with tons of people only in the
Hmm.
chat. And
Hmm.
then they
Hmm.
would pretend it's live, where it's actually not live. And I like wanted to scream and say, can't you
Wow.
guys see that it's not live? Like, we know we're not stupid. We know this is not live.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I really just think the BS meter for neurodivergent people is on a
We have
different level.
zero tolerance for it.
Zero tolerance for
And we
that.
can smell it from a mile away,
Yeah, yeah. And there's
So we're
that
very,
transparency and truth telling,
mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
That
100%,
yeah,
100%. And so I think that for neurodivergent folks, like when they're in business and they're trying to, work on their marketing and their sales, everything about their business just needs to feel safe, in their body.
yeah,
And if it feels a little icky or if there's something there, it's like it's really an invitation to pause and check out what that might be about because you might be going down a path that it's not going to work for you.
yeah.
Hmm.
Like right now we were talking about from the marketing perspective, and then there's also from the buying perspective, and that's what
Hmm.
you were addressing. It's like how
Hmm.
do I want to buy? How should it feel in my body
Hmm.
to want to buy something and make a buying decision. I think what we're addressing is obviously the healed neurodivergent person. And what I'm seeing out there is kind of this manipulation of the non-healed neurodivergent people where there's even more stress applied. And you kind of mentioned that as well, right? And so they're buying out of anxiety.
That's right.
But then if you are the healed neurodivergent person, how is that in integrity with what you're actually selling, right?
Yeah. To be
Um,
honest, I don't even know what that means because neurodivergence is not something you heal or fix.
True. I guess it's just knowing, having looked at it. Like, would you say that someone who knows, so whether it's an official diagnosis or just,
Hmm.
having looked at it more
Hmm.
deeply, are they more able to deal with this anxiety because they
I mean,
now
it's
know?
often very relieving for people. I mean,
Right.
especially for the adults I work with, right? Because most of us have grown up thinking that we're not smart or not good enough or, we're dumb at math or, whatever it is, like all these stories because you were not operating in the same way as other people. So oftentimes when I work with clients and we move into this looks like a possible diagnosis for you, there's a lot of relief. There's a lot of like, oh, is that why that was so hard? Or is that why I couldn't read? Or is that why math is hard? Or is that why socializing exhausts me? Or, whatever it is, it's like it becomes like this unraveling, right? And there's a lot of,
Hmm.
there's emotion to that. There's grief and, that kind of a thing. But, once you really embrace, like, this is who I am, and you learn to work with your particular flavor, right, of neurodivergence, I think that you can be very successful at just about anything. I don't see why it should
Yeah.
stand in your way.
And I guess that's what I meant by healed, you just like
Hmm.
learn who you truly are. And I think that's when you start to say no even more to the things
Hmm.
that are not aligned with you. Where
Yes.
before, like what I'm seeing with my son, it's like, well, the pressure from the neuronormal side of the world is so hard that, there's more push to no, to just have to do what everybody else is doing, and then the anxiety, of course, goes up. And
Sure.
so if I take this to the marketing thing, it's like if you have not yet figured out truly who you are and really stand with that, then there's a big risk that you are feeling this anxiety every time you're being sold to or have to market.
Hmm.
So I guess that's where that pivot is. It's like, no, I'm not taking it anymore. I'm doing marketing my way, or I'm not buying from people who are trying to manipulate me and, push me into scarcity and stuff, things like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Manipulate me in any way. I mean, one of the things that in general is kind of scary about the coaching world specifically is that it's so much based on pain point marketing,
Yeah.
and tapping into people's anxiety or stress or whatever it is that's going on and offering some kind of quick fix,
Yeah.
and it's like it's so unethical and it's so wrong because that's not the way human beings work,
No. Yeah,
you
totally.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, talking about this coaching world, and these pain points, that's another one of these words that need a reframe, right?
Absolutely.
Because yeah, that's what the old marketing is based on. Is like,
Hmm.
let's make the pain points so bad, let's make you feel so shitty that you have to buy my solution
Yeah,
kind of thing.
it's like pouncing on a little innocent animal or something,
Yeah,
that's how it
yeah,
feels for me,
yeah,
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 no,
yeah,
absolutely
it's
not.
terrible.
Hmm.
Another thing is the pricing discussion,
Yes,
and I think there is also this really need for transparency. Can you speak to that?
100%. That is absolutely necessary. It's kind of what I was saying before, even for myself. It's like I want to know all of the data.
Yeah.
And I want to know that like for myself on my own terms so that I can process it on my own. Right? So if somebody doesn't have any pricing on their website, I will likely not work with them
Yeah.
because I need that information up front. Otherwise, I will feel a little anxiety maybe, about the possibility that if I get on a call with you, you might do some of these unethical things or things that just don't work for me and my body, right? Like now you're going to talk about pricing and now I have to do it right now and I'm going to get all anxious and no.
Yeah.
I'm very clear about that part. So yes, I think for neurodivergent folks, we want all of the information, as much information as you can give us, and then we can make our decision.
Yeah. And give
Mhm.
me time to make
And I
that
need
decision.
time. That's right.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
need pressure. None of that will work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
None of that will work.
Yeah. In a way, to me, neurodivergent people are like super smart, very conscious human
Hmm.
beings.
Hmm.
And the old way of marketing is taking people for stupid, really. It's like, oh, I can, trick and sleaze you and you will never
Hmm.
notice what I'm
Hmm.
doing.
Hmm.
And neurodivergent people are like, no, I'm not having this
No.
at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Which I
yeah,
think is awesome. It's a superpower.
yeah. It really is. And in a
Hmm.
way, to me, there's no surprise that we're seeing more and more neurodivergency because we're really heading into this time of sovereignty, of each
Hmm.
individual being very, very
Hmm.
individual, very authentic, and very sovereign, and like showing up with that sovereignty and yeah, being able to make our own decisions, not just for buying stuff, but for everything. And I think that's a very, yeah, it's a beautiful vision of the world to think of humans like that.
Hmm. No, I agree. Meeting each other on that place, right?
Yeah, exactly. And having sales conversations in that kind of, um, yeah, with that basis is a completely different thing than, like I mentioned before, where, I just read a script and don't even care, if we've talked before or whatever. So
Hmm.
it's just,
Or I look at you like dollar signs,
oh yeah, yeah, that's another one. Yeah,
right? And it's like
yeah,
I can't do that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
just like I physically can't do that. I have to look at you as a person,
yeah,
and just show you what I have and then give you that agency,
Yeah.
to decide whether this is the right fit for you.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Sovereignty, agency,
Hmm.
beautiful
Hmm.
words.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So no pressure, from me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What about, other boundaries that you have learned to set for yourself as an entrepreneur, as a marketer maybe, but just yeah, finding that inner peace and being able to keep showing up without
Hmm.
anxiety. What would you
Yeah,
share?
well, I mean, I think that it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, right? That to me, the word that comes up is embrace, right? It's not fix, it's embrace. Embrace that this is how your nervous system is wired, right? This is how you were born, and this is how you operate in the world, right? Because when we resist, right, it creates tension and
Yeah.
stress and anxiety. And I know that's not easy and it takes time, but I think that that's, step one is accept that this is who you are, right?
Hmm.
Accept that, for me, it's like, oh, I don't really want a lot of loud noises, or I have to be careful about how much time I spend in group environments, or, how much time am I spending in front of my computer, or how much time am I spending outside? It's like all of these things around my sensory stuff, my particular version of it, and what that looks like for me. But I think that having a lot of boundaries is really important because we need so much more time to recover
Yeah.
from things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
giving yourself permission to do that. No, this is literally a physical thing that is happening to you. And if you push your body past that, that typically doesn't go well. It creates more
No,
stress.
no, exactly. It's creating that spaciousness
Hmm.
for you to be human
Hmm.
because you are, yeah, a unique human being who has unique needs.
Yeah.
And that's the
And
whole
you are the
thing.
only one that can decide like what your level of care needs to be.
Yeah.
You're the only one can decide that. What are your office hours? When do you respond? What are your boundaries with people in your business? What are your boundaries with yourself?
Mm. Yeah. It actually starts with yourself because otherwise you're not walking your
Yes,
talk, right?
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that's the best way that we can, take care of ourselves. And sometimes we have to, kind of like what your son was saying, it's really hard because sometimes we have to explain these things to people, like 'cause somebody might look at me and go, but what's the big deal about another evening meeting this week?
Yeah. I
And it's
get
like,
that all the
well,
time.
yeah, and it's
Like,
like, well,
no,
basically
not
my head
happening.
feels like it's going to explode.
Yeah.
So that's a no for me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In my body, I do not feel the capacity, the energy at all to do it.
Yeah.
And I will pay a consequence for that. I might like be out for a couple of days just laying around staring at a wall or something.
Mm.
Just to
Mm.
recover. Like less the decreasing my stimulation just to be able to recover from overstimulating myself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Let's wrap up with something like positive, a positive outlook on how,
Oh yeah.
the world would look differently if we had all this humane marketing led by neurodivergent
Oh,
people,
that sounds dreamy.
businesses according to the new rules by neurodivergent
Oh
people. How would
gosh.
that feel
Oh,
and look
just
like?
that just makes my heart soar, just to imagine that, because if sensitive people ran the world, right? And if our skill set of thinking things through, slowing down, really taking the time to make a decision, an informed decision that's rooted in like how it feels for you, like my goodness, the possibilities are endless
It
of
would
how the
just
world could
be
change,
so different, right?
And
Yeah.
I do think that, what gives me hope, in the present is that this next generation of kids and young people have all of this information at their disposal. So my hope, right, is that this generation can grow up not feeling like they're dumb or like there's something wrong with them, that they'll just own that as part of who they are from the very beginning, right? Which is the
Mhm.
opposite of what I see with so many adults.
Yeah.
So many of the adults I work with, and we're talking CEOs, we're talking big people that are like, oh my goodness, is this what's been going on all this time? But they grew up feeling less than, or feeling like they had to mask, or feeling like they had to work 10 times harder than everybody else, push
Yeah.
themselves, that kind of a thing.
Exhausting. Yeah.
And they're really feeling the consequence of that
Yeah.
in their bodies, in their lives.
Mm.
So that's one thing that gives me hope, is that this new generation, it's like, wow, you guys have all of that in your little hands. That's amazing.
Yeah. And also, like, they're just not having it. They're like, they look
They
at
are
us,
not
seeing
having
what
it.
we created, and they're like, I'm not having that. That's so
Why would I do
stupid.
that?
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, that gives us lots of hope. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's much more permission.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we need to continue this conversation in episode 2 around just
Yeah,
kind
this is
of
a
like
big
today
one.
we talked a lot about marketing. Maybe we can just talk about entrepreneurship for
Yes.
neurodivergent people because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there who are, really bringing these new concepts, new
Mhm.
ideas. And I think it'd be interesting to continue the conversation.
I think it's actually a really important conversation to have.
Yeah. Well, for now, why don't you share with people how you work with them, where they can find you, and all of that?
Yeah, so, I work both with individuals and groups and organizations, right? So with individuals, it's about, understanding their neurodivergency and if there's any, obstacles related to that, like feeling less than, feeling not good enough, feeling like you have to overperform, whatever the behavior is that interferes, we really look at that and address that so that people can live with, ideally less stress and just feeling better in general about life, And with groups and organizations, I really love to bring in the inclusion component of having neurodivergent folk in your organization because
Mm,
1 in 4 people falls under the neurodivergent umbrella.
wow.
That's a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? So if you're looking at your organization and it's hard because it shows up as communication issues a lot of the time or, things that look like performance issues in an organizational environment when really this person is just struggling with some kind of neurodivergence. And when that's addressed, then they can become a peak performer employee just like everybody else.
Mm, yeah.
hmm Yeah, and
Wow.
people can find me on my website. They can look for me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Instagram, so, and
And
please
your
don't,
website is miriammartinezcoaching.com, correct?
yes, it is. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. And yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out around anything related to neurodivergence.
Wonderful. Well, to be continued.
Yes.
Thanks so much for, sharing this. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
thank you, Sarah.
Thanks so much for watching and being part of a generation of marketers who cares for yourself, for your clients, and for the planet. We really are change makers before we are marketers. So go ahead, be the change you want to see in the world. And I hope to see you again next week. Take care.